He didn't even call me. After everything, after the deployments, the surgeries, the years I spent dodging bullets and burying brothers in arms, I opened my phone and saw one message from my father. Don't bother coming this Christmas. We've decided it's best you stay away this year. No, how are you? No, we miss you. Just a text that read like a severance notice from the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. My name is Rachel Monroe. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever walked through hell just to come home and realize your family would rather keep the door locked? The military taught me how to shut off emotions, but I swear that message hit me harder than a mortar blast.
My mom didn't chime in.
My brother didn't say a word. It was like they all signed some unspoken agreement to exile me right before the holidays. I sat there in my little one-bedroom apartment in Fayetteville, staring at the blinking Christmas lights I'd strung across the window, wondering what I did to deserve this kind of cold. I typed just one word back. Fine. And I meant it. Not in the way you say fine when you're hurting and want someone to ask again. No, this was the final kind of fine. The you won't get another chance to hurt me kind. I closed my laptop, deleted the airline ticket I'd bought 3 weeks earlier, and poured myself a glass of red. I toasted the air. To family. 5 days later, I woke up to 10 missed calls. One was from my brother, one from my dad, from my mom, and one from their lawyer. That was the one that made my heart pause. Because by then, it was too late to undo what I'd already set in motion. Too late to unsay what they'd said. Too late to unwrite the letter I'd mailed. They thought I'd come back like I always did, loyal, forgiving, hungry for scraps of love. But this time, I wasn't the girl who left. I'd come home, wearing a different kind of armor. And they were about to learn just how dangerous a daughter can be when she finally stops trying to earn her father's love. Let me take you back. Before the silence, before the text, before the betrayal that cemented everything. I was 18 when I enlisted. My father didn't hug me at graduation. He just said, "Try not to embarrass yourself out there." That was his love language, criticism disguised as advice. But I didn't join to make him proud. I joined because I needed to believe I was worth something. Because home never felt safe, not with the way he looked at me, like I was a burden he hadn't asked for. When I made sergeant, I flew home that Christmas, hoping for some kind of acknowledgement. He asked me to shovel the driveway before I even took my boots off. No, congrats. No, we're proud of you. Just grab a coat. Mom? She was a ghost of the woman I needed her to be. Always wringing her hands, whispering, "Just don't make him angry." And my brother, Tyler, he followed Dad like a shadow. Learned young that siding with him meant peace. So I played the good soldier. Called every birthday. Sent flowers on anniversaries. Mailed checks when the roof leaked or the car broke down. They never asked where the money came from. Never asked what it cost me. Just cashed it and sent an emoji back. Sometimes not even that. Still, every year I hoped. I hoped for one Christmas where I'd walk in and feel like I belonged. One holiday where my seat at the table wasn't an obligation, but a welcome. But this year, I had different plans. I was finally done with service. I had my discharge papers, a modest pension, and a tired heart. I wanted to come home, bake cookies with Mom, hear Tyler's new job updates, maybe, just maybe, get a pat on the back from Dad. Instead, that text. So, I set the plan in motion. Because 5 years ago, during one of my rare leaves, Dad had asked me to co-sign something for the house. A second mortgage. I was barely 25. He said it was just a formality, a technicality, he called it. I was young, exhausted, and desperate for his approval, so I signed without reading. Big mistake? For them, yes. Because now I owned 51% of their house. They didn't know that yet. But they would. Very, very soon. The irony? I'd forgotten all about that mortgage. It wasn't until after Dad's message, after that text detonated something cold inside me, that I went digging through old military email archives for a distraction. And there it was, a digital copy of the co-signing document, flagged as executed. Signed by him. Signed by me. Stamped. Witnessed. Legal. I clicked through it again, slower this time. And there in legalese, it whispered back something I hadn't caught before. In the event of primary borrower default or voluntary transfer, the cosigner assumes controlling interest over the property until full loan maturity. Controlling interest. I sat back, stunned. While he'd been so busy cutting me off, he forgot that on paper, I wasn't just his daughter. I was his co-owner.
No, scratch that.
I was the majority owner. He needed my signature for that refinance 5 years ago because of his weak credit. And I'd signed, like a fool in uniform, thinking it meant I mattered.
Now?
It meant I owned his pride and joy, the house he always bragged about. The same house he told me I wasn't welcome in. Oh, the poetic justice was so thick, it almost tasted like syrup. That night, I called a lawyer, a real estate specialist I'd met on base during a seminar in Tampa. Hypothetically, I said, what happens if a cosigner holds majority interest and the borrower tells her not to come home anymore? There was a pause, then a chuckle. They shouldn't have told her that. Because if she wants to take control of the property, she can.
I didn't tell my family anything.
Instead, I drafted a letter. Not a dramatic one. Just the facts. Calm, polite, formal. Effective immediately, I will be exercising my controlling interest as cosigner and legal partial owner of the property located at 12 Windmere Lane. All legal rights and responsibilities will be enacted through counsel. You will be contacted shortly. I mailed it certified. Old school. Intentional. Let them open it together. Let them feel it. Then I booked myself a quiet cabin for Christmas in the Smoky Mountains. Snow falling. Fire crackling. Phone off. 5 days later, I turned it on. 10 missed calls. 1 from a lawyer. And I smiled. Not out of revenge, no. Out of clarity. For the first time in my life, I didn't need their permission to come home. I was home. Because they were living in a house that legally belonged to me. Tyler called first. Ratch. What the hell is this? Dad's freaking out. He's talking about lawyers and eviction notices. What are you doing? I took a sip of my coffee and stared at the snowy hills outside my cabin. I'm executing my rights, I said calmly. Same way Dad executed his decision to tell me not to come home. You're seriously gonna kick them out? Over a stupid text.
No, Tyler.
I'm not kicking them out.
Yet.
I let that hang in the air. He sputtered. Come on, this is Dad. You know how he is.
Yes.
I do. That's why I'm doing this. Because here's the thing, sometimes the people who hurt you the most never think you'll fight back. They rely on your silence, your need, your hope for crumbs. But I didn't need crumbs anymore. I had a contract, and for the first time in my life, I had power. The next call was from their lawyer, a man named Harold Wells. He tried to sound casual, but I could hear the panic in his voice. Ms. Monroe, I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding. Your letter arrived, rather abruptly, and understandably caused a bit of alarm. I interrupted him. There's no misunderstanding, Mr. Wells. The documents are valid. I have the original. I've reviewed the terms with my counsel. I am now invoking control. A beat of silence. Then, well, I'm sure we can work something out, perhaps a buyout? A reassignment of the note. That's when it clicked. They were scared. Because Dad had defaulted again. Missed payments. Probably thought the bank would go easy. But now he was staring down the barrel of his worst nightmare.
Me.
I leaned back and whispered, I'm open to discussion. But the first condition is that he calls me himself. Not through you. Not through Tyler. I want him to ask. And just like that, Harold fell quiet. He knew what I was doing. It wasn't about the house. It was about acknowledgement. I hung up and looked around the cabin.
There was no tree.
No stockings. No smell of cinnamon or roasted ham. But it was peaceful. And that peace? I earned it. With scars. With years. With silence. They didn't know it yet, but I was done being the soldier daughter they could ignore. Now, I was the landlord. And Christmas was about to get very, very uncomfortable back home. Christmas morning, I woke up to another call, this time from Mom. Rachel, she whispered, her voice trembling like a kettle on the edge of boil. Please don't do this. Your father's furious. He hasn't slept. Tyler's barely speaking. Can't we just move past it? Move past it? I almost laughed. Mom, I said softly. Do you remember what he texted me? She went quiet. I continued. He told me not to come home for Christmas. Not this year. Not next. He said I wasn't welcome anymore. Do you know what that does to someone who's been deployed for nearly a decade? Who sent checks from war zones? Who never missed a call or card? Still silence. I added. I was in a desert on my 26th birthday. Got ambushed on the road in Kabul. Called you after I made it out alive. Do you remember what you said? I don't, she whispered. You said, well, I'm glad you're safe, but don't talk about that around your father. It makes him anxious. And there it was. The truth they all danced around. I wasn't their daughter. I was their inconvenience. A ghost they accepted only when I was invisible. Mom, I said gently, I'm not doing this out of anger. I'm doing it because I finally realized I was never going to be welcomed back unless I brought something to the table. She sobbed then, raw, helpless sobs, and begged me to reconsider. But I didn't cave. Not this time. Because what they didn't know was that I had already filed the legal paperwork. A notice of possession change. It was scheduled for delivery that afternoon. And the cherry on top? I'd hired a property management company, run by a veteran friend of mine from base, to take over operations. They would show up the next day for a formal inspection, not to kick anyone out.
Yet.
But to let them know, this wasn't their home anymore. That afternoon, I sat by the fireplace, wrapped in a thick sweater, and watched the flames dance. No gifts, no family, but there was peace, and justice, and something sweeter than any holiday carol.
Control.
I didn't blow up their world out of revenge. I simply reminded them whose name was on the deed. And this year, for once, Christmas belonged to me. The property manager called me around 4 p.m. Hey, Ratch. We did the walkthrough. Your folks weren't exactly thrilled to see us, but we kept it civil, just like you said. I asked, how bad is it? He exhaled. Cosmetically? Not terrible. Structurally? Leaks in the basement, unfinished attic reno, mold spots under the windows. And get this, 2 of the 3 bedrooms have tenants. College kids. Sublets, maybe. I froze. They rented out the rooms? Looks like it. Cash deals, no paper trail. That was it. The final confirmation. They hadn't just cut me out of the family, they'd turned my own legal property into a side hustle behind my back. All while texting me I wasn't welcome. My stomach turned. Not from anger. From insult. They used my name to buy the house. Then filled it with strangers. Then told me I didn't belong. That night, I drafted a second letter. This time, it wasn't polite. Effective January 2nd, you are hereby given formal 30-day notice of management transition and possible termination of residency. Your sublease agreements are illegal. Rent collection is suspended. This property is now under formal investigation for code violations. Contact all communications through legal counsel only. I signed it with my full name and military rank. Rachel Monroe. Sergeant First Class, U.S. Army, retired. Legal co-owner, 12 Windmere Lane. I sent the document to Harold, their lawyer. Then I texted Tyler just 3 words. Check your mailbox. Within an hour, the calls started again. Voicemails.
Pleading. Panic.
Even from Dad. I didn't listen to a single one. See, there's a moment every soldier knows. The second your boot hits soil and you realize you survived. And in that silence, you feel this power. That's what I felt now. They could scream. They could cry. They could beg. But I had survived them.
And now?
They were living in my house. With my rules. And come January, they were going to learn what it felt like to be unwelcome. Not out of pettiness, but because I no longer needed a seat at their table. I owned the whole damn dining room. January 2nd arrived like a cold slap. The air was bitter, the sky heavy with snow, and the driveway of 12 Windmere Lane was packed with 3 cars, 2 of which I didn't recognize. I didn't go alone. I showed up with my property manager, a locksmith, and a clipboard full of documentation. I wore a dark coat, boots polished, and my army-issue dog tags around my neck. I wasn't there for a fight. I was there for an inspection. Foreclosure. Dad opened the door, red-faced and sweating despite the freezing cold. "Rachel, what the hell is this circus?" he snapped. I didn't answer right away. I walked past him. My house. My terms. Mom appeared at the base of the stairs, clutching a rosary she only ever dusted off for show. Tyler sat on the couch, pale, defeated. He didn't even look at me. I took a breath. This is a legal transition of ownership and management. As of this morning, all rights associated with this house fall under my direct control. You have 30 days to make a decision. Formalize your tenancy under my contract or relocate. Dad lost it. Relocate. You can't do this. This is our home. No, I said. It's my investment, he growled. I built this place. And you defaulted on it, I said coldly. And signed it over to a 24-year-old in uniform just so you could save your reputation with the bank. That shut him up. I looked around. The living room I used to sneak into at night. The mantel where my boot camp photo used to sit.
Gone now.
Just a space with people who had erased me.
So, I kept going.
The illegal tenants have already been notified. If they're not out in 10 days, I'll file for trespassing. And if anyone attempts to intimidate, damage, or interfere with this process, I will pursue criminal charges. Mom's lips trembled. But where will we go? I looked her dead in the eye. I don't know, Mom. Maybe not home for Christmas. She burst into tears. Tyler stood and tried to say something, maybe an apology, but I raised a hand. I don't need words. I needed them 10 years ago.
Now?
I need boundaries. The locksmith changed the code on the front door as I walked out. Snow crunched under my boots. The air smelled clean. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a daughter. I felt like a woman who came back stronger than they ever expected. They could call it cold. I called it survival. The final notice expired on January 31st. They didn't fight it. No last-minute calls. No dramatic standoffs. Just silence, the kind that comes when people finally understand. You're not bluffing anymore. I arrived the morning after with a new key in hand. The house was empty. No note. No goodbye. Just a hollow echo as I stepped through the front door, where once I'd stood in uniform, praying for welcome and received exile instead. I walked the room slowly. In Tyler's old room, I found a duffel bag tag from some ski trip I was never invited to. In the living room, a deep scratch across the floor where the coffee table used to sit, the one I bought at 19 with my first deployment check, and they claimed was alone. I stared at that scar in the wood for a long time. Not angry, just aware of how deep damage can go when no one sees you bleed. I didn't cry. Instead, I opened the back door, let the cold wind swirl through, and stood there with the winter sun on my face. This wasn't revenge. Not really. It was restoration. Of boundaries. Of dignity. Of a name they tried to write out of the family story. I turned the place into transitional housing for female veterans. Young women with stories like mine. Stories of return, rejection, and the long journey to reclaim who we are beyond the uniform. We called it the Monroe House. And when reporters came sniffing around after a local outlet ran the story of a veteran reclaiming her home from the family who cast her out, I didn't tell them the full truth. Because this wasn't about shaming them. This was about healing me. So when people ask, was it worth it? I smile and say, more than they'll ever understand. I don't visit them. They don't call. But every Christmas now, I light a candle on the porch. Not for them.
For me.
For the girl who once stood outside this house, in the snow, unwanted. She finally found her way back, and made sure no woman like her would ever stand alone again.